Give it a minute. Thank you all so much for coming. We are just about. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Our topic is quite unique today. We are calling it Setting Up Your Child for Success, Setting Yourself. We called it Setting You and your student up for success, balancing school, career, and culture. I am Marian Amwa, your moderator. I will be your host. You know me. But if you don't know me, my name is Marian Amwa, and I am a co-chair at Breaking Through with the Breaking Through community. And here we share real stories, practical strategies, and tools to help you thrive at work and in life. And so I know that today we are in for a very special treat. Today's session is a special session. Today's session is a special session, a special edition. First time we're having it on a Monday. And welcome everyone from wherever you are tuning in. Thank you so much for joining us. To all our subscribers, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We have an incredible panel with us here. We have a parent who will be asking questions and bringing real life strategies for balancing career, culture, and family. We have a teacher who will be offering classroom experience, practical guidance, experiential knowledge. We have a school psychologist who will be sharing expertise in emotional and social well-being and more. We have a college professor who would talk to us about, all of them will be touching on different topics: student success, letting go, using AI and technology. So welcome, Romeo, welcome, Allison, welcome, Eunice, welcome, Brenda. Thank you so much for joining me today and for joining our community. I know that you're going to provide us with tips and incredible nuggets and wisdom for us to succeed in this school year. And so let's begin with introductions. Can you please tell us who you are and a little bit about the perspective you bring to us today? Let's start with Mrs. Sawyer.
Hi, my name is Allison Sawyer. I have 30 years of classroom experience, a number of paraeducational organizational experiences outside of that. Have had a private tutoring service and also on the side a music program separate from my academic program for often disadvantaged children. I come from an academic family. Both my parents were college professors, and I went through a public school system and have taught in both the private and public sectors.
Welcome, Allison. Let's jump to Brenda.
Yes, thank you, Miss Marian. Brenda. I work in higher education as well, administration. I have two elementary students. I have a fourth grader and a first grader. Yeah, and both of them they've been to private school. Now they're in a public charter school. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Good. Now let's jump to Romeo.
And thank you, Mrs. Amwa. So, just as you all already heard, I'm Romeo Abraham. I'm an assistant professor currently at University of North Carolina, Wilmington. I've been here for 4 years, and I had a bit of my education, especially the undergrad, from Ghana. I mean, from Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Yeah, then I came to the US, did my master's here, and also my PhD in the US. And I'm here today to talk to you.
Thank you, Romeo. Now, Eunice.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Eunice Blemadou. I am a school psychologist. So my training is a bit of a windy road. My undergrad is in economics, my master's is in public administration, and my PhD is in educational psychology. I currently work in the public school system as a school psychologist. Before that, I worked in child welfare reform. So I'm kind of winding around, finding my path, and I think I found a home in school psychology. I'm really invested in seeing the developmental trajectory of students really meet their potential. And so that's where I landed.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. You bring a wealth of experience and knowledge. I can't even multiply the years or add the years. So Sorry. Today I'm not going to do math. Thank you so much. Now, so let's dive into our conversation for the day. Academic success. Every parent wants their child to succeed. Every teacher wants the student to succeed. The community wants, student success, because when we all do well, when one does well, we all do well. So, as a parent, Brenda, what does academic success look like for you and your child? And how do you support them without too much pressure? Now, this question is going to Brenda, but I know that Mrs. Sawyer, you have run the gamut as a student, as a parent, as a teacher, as a grandparent. So by all means, jump in, and Eunice and Romeo also please feel free to jump in as we discuss academic success. That's the first question.
Yes, thank you. So, I mean, as far as I love to see the good grades, that's not my focus right now. I want them to enjoy learning. I want them to grow in whatever they are learning, to understand the concepts of what they are learning. And so that's what I see. If they understand the concept of what they are learning, I feel like that's success for me.
Okay.
And yeah, and I mean, I do support them in, celebrating their efforts. Sometimes the kids is really difficult to, understand certain things at different stages of their life. So I always try to celebrate their effort as much as the outcome. Yeah.
Okay, so Brenda, let me just probe a little bit, because you probably might not be a typical parent, typical African parent who is thinking that you bring A or
I mean, that's why I said I like the A's, but I don't. So I mean, let you finish with your question, and then I'll jump in.
Oh, yeah, like typical parent, African parent, or even American parent. Why didn't you come with the A's? And I have a quick story. Somebody said this is a child that I know. He always had A's, and one day he had like 3 A's, 1 B, and the parent was just focused on the B. When his friend had B's, and said the parents were so happy. But tell us, you might be atypical, but
I'm a typical Ghanaian parent as well, but I feel the reason why I'm looking for understanding the concept is when I was in school, I was all about chew, pour, and forget. I could chew and get all the A's, but I don't know how I got the answer. And I don't want my kids to go through that, because you forget. You might get all the A's, and then you go out there, they ask you, how did you get the answer? And you don't know. So I don't want them to go through that. I want them to actually understand, because when you understand the concept, it sticks with you for a very long time. Compared to just chewing the formula and then getting the A. Okay. So that's how I'm seeing it right now.
Okay. So can you explain to people who don't so chew, pour, and forget?
So chew, pour, forget is when you're doing maybe your multiplication, you don't really understand it, but you can chew and know that 4 times 4 is going to give me this answer, and that's all you know. So you chew that formula, you got the A, and then by tomorrow you can't forget how you got the A. You can't forget the how you got to the answer.
Okay.
That's all you chew. You chew the formula and then you forget it.
Okay. Yeah. So you chew it, you memorize it sort of
memorize it several times, and then you pour it on your exam paper, because most people I'm talking from experience. We learn to write exams because that's all we are learning for, just to write the exam, pass the exam, and that's it. So that's the pouring is when you're writing the exam. You chew the formula, now you're pouring it on your exam paper, and then after that, you forget it. Okay. You don't remember anything.
Okay, so if you are listening to us, write chew, pour, and forget in the chat. I want to make sure that you are paying attention, you are learning something. Eunice, I see that you were laughing a lot. Why are you laughing?
Laughing because, and I also think that Allison should jump in here. So when we think about what students need to learn, there is some element of rote memorization, just things that you know by heart off the top of your head, like your multiplication tables. But when we get to those higher levels that we want them to understand, to evaluate, to analyze, they don't do that if they're just remembering things, right? They're not thinking about the application. And if we want them to actually go out and apply their learning, they have have to get past what she was saying, like, oh, I can memorize this formula, get this done, and keep it moving. And then it leaves you. You don't know what the application is or how to use it. And so we don't want that for our students. And that's kind of why I was joking. Like,
I was,
also,
I was,
my parents being the same way when it came to, oh, you got a B. It wasn't even that. It was worse than that. So I had straight A's, and then it said homework incomplete. And my parents would drill down. Why do you have an incomplete in homework? I'm the leader of the class. It doesn't matter. So those standards, as much as they, sometimes would tire us out, they're important. But at the same time, you want your kids to apply that learning. And I'm just gonna let Allison talk because I think she has some.
I was laughing because I grew up in a family that, was all about the grade point average. And I remember clearly in fourth grade, I saw a girl next to me writing with her left hand and then trying with her right hand and writing it like slanting in the other direction. And I thought it looked really cool. And I thought I would try it on one of my papers. And I got a very bad grade, and it affected my grade for writing. And my parents went marching over to the school to find out, what was wrong. And, because it was the first time I hadn't gotten all A's.
Yeah.
It was over handwriting that I had purposely wanted to see what it would look like if I had done something different. But I think our training and our educational system for so many years has been about a grade point average. And for those of you who are immigrants, I see this as a teacher. When we have particularly African and Asian students where there is a parental higher expectation of this is what your grades are going to look like, and this is how you are going to succeed, we apply that and we think that that applies to all grade levels. And so I'd like to just take 1 second and say, I think that what we're talking about with elementary school and middle school and high school, and then when we get into higher education, is completely different. So fundamental skills as a young child, when a lot of this is really building this fundamentals of how do you communicate, how do you self-advocate, how do you explain your thinking process, those communications, good habits, those are the kinds of things that I think look to me as a teacher spell academic success for a very young child. By middle school, we're talking about perseverance, maybe study habits, maybe evaluating your own work a little bit more, putting more effort into it, persevering. And this is the age where I think students need to begin to understand their own learning modality. Are they a visual learner? Are they a kinesthetic learner? Do they need to move? Do they need to, as an auditory learner, do they need to be in a silent space? Or I have a child who I came home one day and I lit a fuse because he had a TV going, the radio going, earphones in, and he's typing a paper. And I was the kid who needed to be in the library in silence to do work. So I said to him, you cannot possibly write a good paper with all this external stimulus. And then I read his paper and it was superb. Like, that's how he focuses. My other child has to sit in the library like I do and be quiet. So for students in middle school to begin to understand what is their best learning environment, and then by high school to begin to specialize, look at long-term planning, and the academic success then does look very different when it comes to grades, particularly if you have a child who's interested in any of the, STEM kinds of work or wants to go into medicine or higher level physics, obviously then grades take on a new meaning. So I think we need to look at academic success differently depending on which age group that we're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
To
I
add
think
to what we have all said, it is true. For instance, at the college level, when we think of academic success, it's varied. Like, it has various components in the sense that it's not just the grades, right? The grades are very important because, of course, we are evaluated, right? As a college professor, the evaluation, they will look at the grades of your student as part of it, right? So,
Right.
so me looking in as an educator and also even like also concerned about my student performance, I'm thinking about both ways. But what I do personally as, let's say, a teacher is that I'm thinking about, okay, how is this student acquiring the knowledge and how are they able to apply it? So in essence, it's not just being able to understand me, but being able to kind of use that knowledge that you claim to understand to kind of make a decision. Then when you're able to do that, then I know that, okay, I've achieved my goal. Like, so you have gone beyond that and you're able to apply the knowledge. Yeah. So usually, like when I teach or as an academic, usually we tend to focus on students being able to apply the knowledge that they have acquired. So when they get to that stage, we know that yes, we have achieved academic success because when they are out of school and for instance, they go to the job market, they will be able to kind of perform in anything that they put their mind to, because like they are very able to kind of like think critically. They're able to apply what they have to even acquire more skills, or to even like understand anything that you present to them. So we tend to kind of look at very varied approach, because for instance, for the undergrad, we tend to really be focused on, okay, making them very marketable. And by this, what I mean is that giving them skills that they're able to kind of use to branch out wherever they want to, because they can easily apply what they have already, like teaching them like basic skills, maybe like it could even be economics, right? But with that economics knowledge, they can then branch out and be able to even decide, even in investment, how they even take care of themselves, their finances, how to even take care of like certain decisions by kind of knowing the opportunity cost of. So it's like it's very varied. We try to make them like very complicated in quotes, right? But in a good manner, so that they are more useful to society. Yeah. So that's how, like for me personally, academic success is, even as a college professor. Yeah.
Wow, we could just stay on this. And today is a holiday in the US. So if you're joining us, please allow us to I want us to break it down for everyone to understand it and to walk away with some tips and strategies. So I'm hearing, Mrs. Sawyer, from what you said, Brenda has said, in that academic success across the world, across the globe, I can say that for most people is that grade point average. Did you get all A's? So it's very universal. And that is what we are trying to addressing some of those things here. Then I also heard you is the how you acquire the knowledge and how you apply the knowledge. So I've heard it said in different ways. But what I want us to do as we let's dig a little bit deeper. Eunice, you have an opportunity to talk. And Mrs. So I want you to start with that academic success. You said it, but I know you were talking fast for elementary school. Just break it down some more.
Okay.
And I'll have all of you, when you're done, just over for Brenda, for Eunice to add. So let's start with elementary school academics. Lay the foundation very well and explain it. Yes.
Okay. I'd like to preface this too by saying we say academic success and we assume that all children are successful academically. There are children who have phenomenal skill sets that are not academic in nature. You know, growing up in public school systems in Colorado, every school had a voc tech school. And we, you know, very early on, you realize there were kids who were fabulous with their hands or had those great skills, but they weren't necessarily looking to go to university, for instance. And I think that sometimes we mistake saying academic success means that every child is ready for college when I think that we miss the fact that there are kids who may be going into sports or creative arts or performance arts or technical fields that don't require them to see higher education as the end goal. So I just want to preface that by saying I think we need to expand that idea of academic success to include things that are not just leading a child towards an academic career.
Okay.
So I think in elementary school in particular, fundamental skills of communications and good habits. And a lot of this is teaching children how to work in a group, how to be a good friend, how to communicate appropriately to an adult to self-advocate when they don't understand something, how social interactions should and can look, because depending on our family dynamics, some children are not getting that at home. If you come from a secure family unit, no matter what that family looks like, and you feel well loved and well cared for, you are going to respond differently socially than a child that's maybe coming to us who is in a more maybe a dysfunctional setting or a family crisis setting, or even not in their own family. And maybe these things aren't being modeled to them. You know, children who are one of 6 in a family respond very differently in a classroom than children who are only children or firstborn. So I think that we need to see that younger years sometimes as not just, are you getting good grades, but are you learning to be a good human? Are you learning how to find your own voice, to communicate? Are you forming good habits for yourself? Do you know how to care for yourself and then care for the other people around you? That advocacy to be able to explain when you are frustrated without just lashing out. those are skill sets that lead us to academic success later. And I think that in the early years, bringing that that idea that social interaction and psychological and social health is just as important as learning all your math facts or whatever. So I think, leaving that kind of classical model of you memorize, 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 you learn how to critically think and you apply is a very limited view of a child. I was fortunate my last 25 years to teach in a private school where the whole child was really celebrated. And I think having that environment where we were looking at children's social welfare, their emotional welfare, their spiritual welfare, their academic welfare, and seeing the child as a whole is really important, particularly for younger parents to realize that that's an important part of academic success. And Eunice, you probably see that in spades, and probably I'm not addressing it well enough, but I think I see academic success in elementary school as far more than just, are you learning your facts?
Very good. Very good. The whole child, learning to be a good human being, great habits, caring for yourself and other folks. I would like to hear, let's start with maybe Eunice, and then we'll come to Brenda and on elementary school success. And quick one, thank you, Mrs. Sawyer, for laying the foundation that when we say academic success, it does not necessarily mean from pre-K through line through university, PhD. Yes, thank you. Eunice.
So I would definitely agree. I do think that social emotional learning component is a huge one, especially for elementary school students. I know across the country, a lot of districts are making it part of their curriculum where there's dedicated time for students to have exposure to those lessons, to practice those skills, and that's reinforced through the culture and climate of the schools that they are in. I would also like to add that whatever you're doing at home, right, can also contribute to what that child is learning in the school system. Are you able to say to your teacher, to your district officials, I appreciate the social emotional curriculum that you're using. I agree with it. It aligns with my cultural values and mores. So I think that collaboration piece also enters into it a lot more at the elementary school years because we're not expecting as much independence. And so building bridges across school, community, family, and making sure that that's in alignment. Our values, our morals, our beliefs are also part of what that social emotional curriculum looks like is really important. That foundational piece, the content we expect students to get when they're in elementary. Do you know your letters? Do you know your numbers? That's important, but that is like a gateway to students understanding, oh, what does society expect of me and how do I plug into that later on, right? So you're building micro system of a society within a school building that you're expecting a student to learn how to navigate so that they can be successful as they continue to go through education.
Wow.
Really
Social emotional learning, which we don't think about. I'm thinking about the A's that my future grandchild will bring in. Okay, Brenda, and then we jump to Romeo.
Yeah, definitely. Right now, like I said, my kids are in fourth grade and first grade. So academically, in terms of reading, knowing their letters, they're okay. My focus right now is building their social interaction with others, which is, I feel like they are lacking in that part a little bit. So that's what we are working on right now and being able to communicate their needs. Like if something is not going as you want in class or somebody did something to you, those are the things that we are working on to be successful in that area.
Great. Romeo, do you have anything to add on the elementary level before we go to middle school?
The elementary level, so this one I'm just speaking from experience and of course what I expect because I don't really teach at that level. I think at the elementary level they are still in their formative years, right? So creating the right foundation is very important, right? So especially how to behave, right, properly, right? I think it's part of academic success because no matter how intelligent you are, in terms of your cognitive ability, if you don't have the right, they say, attitude and way of even behaving or relating with others and even in the classroom environment, and you are treating people not appropriately, then there's a problem. It means that there's let's say a false balance, right? So at the foundation, I feel it's really important that the formative years children are given the rights. There's a character training, right? So that at least they're able to kind of contain their intelligence and not go out. Like, for instance, if you know how things work, you don't just put things together and create like a bomb and explode. I mean, and get all of us like extinguished, right? But you know how to really use your knowledge properly because you understand that, okay, everything needs to be contained. You know how to relate with people. Yeah, so the foundation is really what I think that at the elementary level is important beyond just the intelligence, like the cognitive abilities here.
Okay, so I'm hearing social emotional learning, whole child, and you've introduced another word, contained, how they can contain their intelligence to use it for the good of humanity. Okay, now let's head to middle school.
Okay.
Academic success or success as a middle schooler.
I want to reference something too, real quick, that both Eunice mentioned and Romeo, when you were talking about your own childhood. I think one thing that's really important, I think, particularly in a melting pot country like ours, is to recognize that it's important for parents, because mostly if people are watching, it's parents who are watching, probably not children, to understand that if there are things that are cultural to your background that are expected in your home, but not communicated to a teacher. And I'm going to use an example. For instance, we had a young child coming to us through a refugee program from a country where looking an adult in the face was considered very disrespectful. And what does every teacher, kindergarten on, do? Eyes on me, right? You know, you watch them in the hallway, eyes on me. And this child was being chided for not looking at the adult in the face when that culturally was completely inappropriate for that child. So I just want to say to parents out there, it's really important to understand that if you know that there is something that's a cultural difference, that gets communicated, because none of us at our school had a lot of knowledge about this country, and we did not realize that that's what was going on. And finally, when a neighbor actually told us that through a translator, it was so helpful for us to realize that that's what was going on. This child was not being disrespectful. In fact, they were in their own minds being very respectful. So I just want to say for parents out there that foundation of those cultural, social, emotional things are really important to be communicated if you know that there is something from your culture that may be different than what you might see in a typical American family, for instance.
Yeah.
So moving on to middle school. So this is my area. I was a middle school teacher for almost 30 years. I love this population because this is the age where students begin to really express themselves. As long as you can deal with all the hormones, it is my favorite population because they're becoming independent. They're learning who they are. They're learning what they like. They have the academic ability at this point to begin to self-direct their attentions, and yet they're still at an age where they're very much wanting somebody to help them along. So it's a great population. I see this in terms of the social emotional as perseverance, study skills, learning to self-regulate, academic awareness of how they learn best, and then being willing to realize that there are, particularly in the American education system, and I think this is worldwide. My father's British, so he went through, a different academic setting, but these ideas that there is a way to, for instance, read a textbook and interpret it and use that information well. Those are learning skills that are going to help them in life in anything they do. So I see this as a time of really beginning to how to read and navigate information and then apply it to their particular interests or skill sets. This is also when kids begin to need to learn things like note-taking and study skills, which are going to help them again in not just high school and beyond, but whatever careers they may have. They're often going to need to write a report or turn information in or whatever. So I think that understanding of that, how to do academics as well as doing the academics, and then allowing for that independence where they begin to separate off a little bit from your authority or even their parents' authority to begin to need to do this work by themselves. This is a time where I think we can expect more of students than we tend to think. And one of the things I loved about middle school was seeing kids really, when their needs are being met, they explode when it comes to their ability to think and to describe. I was at a school that did quite a bit of writing and reading these kids' term papers and their thought processes in middle school is just exciting because they are discovering that world outside of them. And I think in this day and age, with technology the way it is, with AI the way it is, with all the social media, they're being exposed at such a greater level than any of us were. And even for you who are younger on this panel than probably even you were in terms of social media and those kinds of things, they're being exposed to so much and they bring that all into the classroom. So I think part of the middle school skill set is learning how to tune out the negative of all of that information, beginning to learn how to contain that and use it to their advantage, not their disadvantage, not to be sidelined by it, because this is the hormonal age of being all over the place with their emotions, and they have to learn how those emotions affect them in everything they do. In terms of just academic skill sets, this is when grades maybe take on a bit more of an importance, particularly if you have a child trying to get into, let's say, a magnet high school, a STEM program or something like that. They are going to have to begin to realize that there is a correlation between the work they do, their study habits, their grades, and what happens next. But also, this is a huge time period in terms of emotional and intellectual development. And for them to begin to regulate emotions, particularly as it relates to social media, we're seeing it younger and younger and younger, but I think this age is, I think, one of the most affected groups when it comes to influences across the social media spectrum.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you for those of you who have just tuned in. We are having a conversation about success, academic success, parent sanity, learning tips and tools for this new school year. So tell us where you're watching us from. Let's use our chats. And if you have any questions, Alison, Romeo, Eunice, and Brenda, and myself, we will answer them. So I want you to put something in the chat. Tell us, what does academic success mean to you in your home? What does it mean to you? Just put in a comment and let's hear your thoughts. And I'll have Eunice comment if you have any comment on the middle school, and then I want us to jump to the high school success and probably to the university quickly.
So I'll just reiterate that middle school is a really big period of physical, emotional, cognitive change for students. And so I think one of the things that in my experience, because I'm kind of at two different spectrums, mostly elementary to high school transition programming is where I've done most of my work as a school psychologist. And I think for middle school, that social piece, that navigating different friend groups, navigating what are your values that you're saying you align with and you accept, right? Because in middle school, you start to experiment, right? You start to reinvent yourself. You start to push a little bit on, oh, this is what my culture is like at home. These are what the beliefs and values are. This is what it can be when I'm at school during the day, right? So you start to experiment a lot more, and students are finding themselves. And so I think that middle school is the ideal time to make sure that that safety net, those lines of communications between you as a parent, you as a teacher working with students, need to be open because of that experimentation, because they're feeling more comfortable and secure in themselves to branch out and do things that you might not traditionally think they would be interested in or even do. And so it becomes a bit of an experiment and a playground. But I think having that safety net, that those interpersonal relationships are really important when I think about middle school.
Fantastic. Somebody once said that somebody that I worked with said it's in middle school that a child decides whether they want to be a student or a dropout. So those middle school years are so crucial. Let's talk about high school success as it bridges into college. Mrs. Sawyer or anyone can pick that one up. Just a little bit on defining the high school success and getting that child ready even for college.
My high school experience is far more limited in a classroom setting. I've done a lot of long-term subbing in that setting, but not having my own classroom or being in that population for long periods of time. But having had two kids navigate through high school and thinking back on my own experience, I think I see high school as that more specialized interest, long-term planning, time management time from a social perspective. This is when kids start really getting involved in their extracurricular activities and having to navigate that balance between extracurricular home life, maybe church life for them, maybe some kind of a special interest group outside of church, on top of their social groups at school, their social groups at home, and then their homework, and then their, academic work. So I think that this specialized interest, and how to begin to judge the value of other extracurricular activities. I have a child who went into sports, and it was hard for us as parents to let that take so much of his time, because it felt to us like that was not purposeful. It is now this child's career, and it was the best thing he could have done. He did very well academically, and so that was even harder because we kept thinking, you're doing so well academically, why would you make this your, kind of end goal? And it was a really good lesson for us to realize that the plans for him were something completely different, and he needed to have that ability to kind of look through that. This is a time of a lot of self-challenge, and this is when kids really do begin to separate from their parents, and needing to do so in order to leave for university or whatever. But I think it's a challenging time for parents because that separation becomes more difficult. They have less control. Kids tend to, take advantage of that in different ways. So I'm not the best person to address high school, but those are the things that I see can affect academic
Yeah.
success. I do want to mention in this too, that in this discussion, we've not yet talked about children who may be, let's say, on the autism spectrum, or children who have special needs. And so if you're a parent of a special needs child, some of these fundamental skills that we're talking about at each of these age groups may look very different for you, and should look different for you. So I'd love to hear if people have children in those groups. You may have different questions, but some of these things will apply and some of them may not. So
Yeah. Thank you so much for raising that up. Yes, thank you. You might have a child with who might be on a spectrum, and some of these things might, but by all means, put a question in the chat if you have one, and we will try our best to answer that. There is a question. So let me just say that we have a spectrum of people from different places join us. So there's a question that what age range is middle school?
So depending on your state and your jurisdiction, I think almost nationwide now, middle school is 6th through 8th grade. However, I grew up in a system that it was K through 6, 7, 8, and 9 was considered, we called it junior high then, but it's still called middle school in Colorado. And there still are some districts with 7, 8, and 9. And then high school is considered either 9 through 12 or 10 through 12, depending on your district. If you're in the private school system, private schools are often K through 8. And then 9 through 12. And so you limit it, you kind of eliminate calling it middle school if it's a school that's a K through 8 school, but we still consider 6th, 7th, and 8th grade middle school in most places.
Yeah.
And Eunice, you
that is
might know
age.
better from it because you've got far more academic background than I do. You might be able to
Yeah.
speak to that better.
Eunice, what's the age? Is it 10 to about 14?
So students are about 10 when they're leaving sort of elementary now. So in the district that I work with and the ones that I've been exposed to, it's pre-K through 5th is elementary, and then 6th through 8th is middle school, and then you have high school. And then you might have some post-secondary programs, depending on the district, what they're funding, et cetera. But oftentimes that looks a little bit different, especially if you are a student with an individualized educational program or in special education. You can stay in school until you're 21, regardless of the grade itself. You have those supports for you and your family. So it just depends on your particular student's characteristics, the district, but most commonly, yep, it is those grades. So pre-K through 5 is elementary, 6 through 8 is middle, and then 9 through 12 is high school.
Yeah. So middle school, we are talking about 10, 11, 9, 10, 11. Starting middle school. There's another question, is that what is the hardest part of balancing school and home for your family? And I think Brenda, do you want to take that one?
What was the question again?
What's the hardest part of balancing school and home life for your family?
I mean, it's all about making time, because it's not easy working. I work and I have the kids as well, so I make the time. It's intentional. You have to intentionally make the time because kids come back from school, they have extra activities they have to do, they have homeworks. So you have to make the time. Sometimes I just have to take the day off.
Oh, wow.
just to, if I have to do something for them or go to their school. So it's just about being intentional about making time.
Yeah, okay. So prioritizing and being
Yeah.
intentional about it. Okay, let's move from, so I think we have enough in our arsenal about academic success. Thank you. Let's go to AI because that's a hot topic. And for the month of September on this platform, we'll be talking a lot about AI, artificial intelligence. How do you see students using AI for assignments? What are the risks? What are the opportunities? I mean, this is their reality. It's not my time that there was no technology, limited technology. This is their reality. Let's talk about then we'll jump to extracurricular. How do you see them using AI for success? Let's start with Romeo, Professor.
Thank you. So I will say that there's a caution to, of course, all students, and also to make people know how we professors tend to view it. Like, so using AI is not bad, but one thing that is not going to change is that in academia, plagiarism is a problem. So it means that you can't use what someone has created as your own, right? So in the same way, if let's say you are given an assignment and you make AI produce the assignment for you, it means that it is not your own, right? So that core concept doesn't change, right? AI can help you think, right? So in essence, maybe some ideas that you're thinking about it, AI can help you fine tune it, but AI can still not write or do the assignment for you. So like there's a fine line, or you have to be ethical in using AI. In using AI, you have to know that okay, AI is like just a tool. It's just like maybe like you needing to go to work, right? And you drive it, right? So the car is not supposed to do the work for you. The car is just supposed to help you get to your destination. So AI is just to help you probably if the assignment, probably understand and be able to do the assignment. But the AI is not supposed to do the assignment for you. So even though AI is a tool that we appreciate and of course think that it's useful, especially in this day and age that we are in, students have to be very cautious in using it. Like use it in such a way that you are not making AI do the work for you, because you don't have to lose, of course, your ability to think critically, your ability to analyze, your ability to literally produce work that's original, right? So AI can help you bounce ideas and maybe even point out some, let's say, errors even in your thinking that you are not even anticipating. AI can help you in all those things, but finally, the deliverable or the product must still be yours. It shouldn't be, because when we put it in AI and we see that this is coming from AI, then that's a problem, right? Because then you lose point. You literally get zero for that such a work. Yeah.
So, Romeo, are you saying that professors also use AI to check people's work?
And so we have tools here. As I turn it in, we have other tools that even off the top of my, I'm not going to mention all of them, but we have tools that we put students' work in.
Wow.
So we're able to tell that this one, like let's say AI produced like 98%. And this has happened before, yeah, like and so literally a student in such a situation has to redo the entire work or take zero. So it's like normally student will redo the entire work, yeah. But even that one too depends on the faculty. Like a professor can just give you zero straight away, and that professor can confront you that 98% is AI. And of course, the student can't deny it because it's factual, right? Like, so that's what students don't realize. AI work, we have tools that will tell us the exact percentage that you use AI for. If all the work was AI, it would tell you 100% AI. Yeah, so we can tell. Yeah, so students shouldn't think that they are trying to be smart or outsmart us and stuff. Yeah, we always have ways of verifying, and we can tell, and we know. Just as Turnitin and other softwares are there, there are softwares that can tell us that this is 100% AI generated. Yeah.
Okay, this is fascinating. AI can check AI. I see that Mrs. Sawyer, your hand is up, and Brenda. So, Mrs. Sawyer, once you're done, it goes to Brenda. Let's talk a little bit about this AI thing.
Actually, Brenda's hand was up first. Brenda, go ahead and take it, because you as a parent may have really good insight.
It's a question I'm asking, Professor. If I've written my own work and I want AI to maybe summarize it or reword it, is that gonna be bad? Am I gonna
So not necessarily. If the AI is doing more editing, but if the rewording like kind of takes the originality from you, then it's a problem, right? So AI can do more like editing stuff, right? So for instance, maybe like in terms of the flow of the sentence, AI is helping you so that your sentence reads better. That one it's fine. But
Okay.
if AI is literally kind of changing, right? So for instance, you saying something that maybe I did the work, right? Some in Ghana, typically someone will say the work was done by me, and AI tells you that I did the work. That one, like substance wise, is still yours, right? So then in that way, we are fine. But when AI changes and literally spins it in such a way that it is no longer your original idea, then it's a problem. But
Okay.
more editorial stuff like editing, that one, yes, that one is acceptable because when we put it in, we will not catch you in. Yeah,
Whoa.
yes, yes, yes,
Thank
This is
you.
serious.
yeah,
This is serious.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you for enlightening us, Mr. Sawyer.
Well, I just find this such a fascinating topic because I didn't teach during the beginning of the AI, era, but having had this conversation with many people, this is where I find parent and teacher communication is so critical. But when we were talking about social and academic success earlier, um, the school that I most recently came from, where Mrs. Amoir's children went, and where I had the chance to teach them in middle school, both excellent students, by the way. We do a lot of writing, and this is where I find that you can successfully teach kids how to use AI to generate ideas, thought processes, but they're still going to have, it's like a math problem saying you can spill out the answer, but can you show me the work? And so I find that for in an academic setting, this is where you're really going to depend on a teacher who's doing the right things in the classroom to get a verbal response from a child or maybe a written response from a child so that you can see that they can navigate that information outside of just letting, let's say, chat GPT give them an answer, right? But it can help them develop a framework for things, especially if they're trying to organize a paper and they have a hard time organizing their thoughts. I think that we need to see it just like we do, in gosh, okay, this is really dating me, but when we moved from electric typewriters to word processors to computers to, this idea that it's a tool, and a tool can be positive or negative depending on how you use it. And that's true of any tool. If you use a saw to, try and cut your toenails, it's not going to be as successful as using a toenail clipper, but a saw to cut a piece of wood is the most appropriate tool. So I think learning to use it as a tool and use it appropriately. But I think this is borderlining on some of the discussion we were starting on parent advocacy and communication between parents and teachers, and making it very clear for parents what the how to use this well in their home, because I think this is where we have a lot of parents, depending on their age and their own work background, may have never used AI. And so they're going to need a certain amount of education in order to
Yeah.
be able to help their own student use that tool appropriately. We start teaching plagiarism rules in first and second grade in the school that I was in, but it really gets focused in middle school. It's not punitive until middle school. And then at that point it becomes, it affects their grades. But we also talk to them a lot about the character development of your own moral code and compass of honesty and integrity and doing your best and knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are. And it's okay to admit where your weaknesses are and then find help for those areas, as opposed to just depending on somebody else to do the work for you so that you're covering up your own weaknesses. So we try and encourage kids to really come forward with their weaknesses so we can help them with it. And this is where I think AI has especially tricky kind of, it can be helpful, but we also really need to be teaching them the ethical and moral evaluation of how you use something that might look like cheating. And so when it is cheating and when it isn't cheating, and it needs to be an effective part of every classroom communication at all grades from now on, because I think it's not going to go away. So I think it's now learning. It's like social media. I think for a long time people hoped it would just die down, and instead we've now learned how to incorporate it into a classroom to make it an effective tool. But it has to really be thought out by teachers, by parents collectively, parent and teacher communication, school and administration communication, in order to really make it a useful tool as opposed to something that's just going to be crippling a child later on.
Yeah, yeah. Eunice, I saw you smiling, but before I have you comment on it, and then we'll head on to technology and social media. There's a comment. What is the acceptable turn? It's I think, Lucy, if you can expand on it. I'm trying to see the comment. It says, what is the acceptable turn it in limit, please? I think that this comment came when you were trying to describe the when we give you homework, we'll know whether it's 95% or so. Maybe Romeo, you can address it.
So I will say that there's not a fast rule about that. So it depends on your professor, right? Or your teacher. Normally, I mean, we advise no more than 20%, yeah, but a professor can say like 10%, you know. So literally, they are trying to tell you that, like, don't be using work that is not yours, right? But there is a catch here. There are certain phrases that are common phrases or common language, right? So those phrases, so for instance, when there's a turn it in report, we don't just go 10%, 20%, oh, you have exceeded it, so zero. No, right? Sometimes we'll look at the report and we'll see that a lot of the sentences that you use that is saying that you copied, right, are literally a common way of recommunicating, right? So all those ones will not be used against you. So in essence, you can meet that threshold of, okay, you have exceeded 20%. And when we go through, we see that, oh, you haven't done anything unethical, right? Yeah. So there's no really a fast and hard rule, right? It depends on the professor. And usually don't be using more than, right, 20%, right? So yes, yeah. But generally, like, it depends on the professor, yeah.
Ooh, it's scary. It's scary. Eunice, anything to say on that? And then we will talk about, maybe you can jump into that and social media. We've talked about critical skills and habits and putting the phone down. So let's go into that.
Just to piggyback a little bit off what the professor was about, turn it in, and I'll pivot to the next sort of segment. Turn it in also picks up on like plagiarism, not just AI. And so depending on your discipline, if you're a person that's using heavy quotes to support your work, depending on whichever field you're in, it might say that it's 30, 40%. But, you know, again, you have to look at that report, just like he was saying. I mean, I just finished my PhD recently. And so if you were to look at my report, you'd be like, what's going on? But it's also because I'm drawing information from other sources to bolster what I'm talking about in terms of the concepts that I use as part of my framework. So keeping that in mind as well. Depending on your discipline, your Turnitin percentage might look completely different. But to pivot more, Marian, to what you were speaking about, and I think we were moving more so into, were you saying social media or?
Technology, phones, all those things that, because we've talked a lot about good habits, critical thinking, being a good human being, and things are changing.
Yeah. So I will talk a little bit about exposure to technology and younger students, because that's the space that I'm in right now. And so I think that parents, guardians, are always like the gateway for how younger students engage with, use technology. And so us modeling what good habits looks like. I know we spoke a little bit earlier, and I've been in conversations with parents and educators around, my students just can't focus. They can't pay attention. What they think is engagement is actually me entertaining them, right? It's not really a back and forth sort of classroom coming together to learn new concepts and to play things off of each other. And so when I think about technology, I think about what is its use to us in the classroom and how that's contributing to our overall goal. What is our goal at the elementary school level? We talked about fundamentals. We talked about social emotional. How does technology support us in doing that? And unfortunately, I think you've seen with a lot of, I know for my district, but they're banning cell phones in schools because students are on them and they're not really using them in a way that's appropriate for the classroom. They're not really using them in a way that's appropriate for the values of the school, that social emotional component, that community within a school. There have been instances where phones, other technology have been used to bully, right? Online bullying that we do not have as much access or control of that space over. And so students might appear that they're okay in the classroom when really there's a campaign going on online that we have nothing about, we don't know anything about, and that's really detrimental to some of our students. So I think that we really have to think about what is the intent and the purpose of this technology that we're bringing into our schools, and how is that going to impact our student depending on their developmental age, right? So what is appropriate for an elementary school student versus a middle school student, right? What is a social media platform that you think is even appropriate for an elementary school student? So, I'll put that out there and just say that I think that once we have our goals down packed as a community, as a family, as a school, as a district, we better understand how we leverage that technology within our classrooms.
Okay, so Eunice, before I have your other panelists speak, what are some healthy boundaries families can set around technology and social media to protection, right? Mental health, academic performance, just behavior. Can you cite a few, being a school psychologist, give us a few examples?
For younger ages, I think all the way up to 8 to 10 years of age, we don't like to see students on social media for more than an hour, or even television for more than an hour a day. Because at that point, we want you to actually be engaging with your family, engaging with the students around you, engaging with the material in front of you. So we say that, especially for the younger kids, if they have more than an hour of screen time a day, it's not appropriate for them, right? Their brains are still developing. You want them engaging with individuals, building out their speech abilities, building out their ability to recognize different facial expressions, emotions. That engagement piece is what helps with their development at that age. And so I'm putting that out there as well. When you think about middle school students, think about what are the platforms that they are going on to. Okay. Do these platforms have parental controls? Can you see who they're talking to? Can you see what the topics are? Can you, if something is going wrong, do you have access to the administrators of that platform to let them know that this isn't appropriate, right? There have been school districts who've invested in their own sort of intranet, their own sort of social media platform that is oversaw by administration within the school building and the district that helps put those additional safeguards in place. So as a parent, as a guardian, as someone who's involved in the community, how much of that control are you giving up depending on the platform, depending on the age range, which I think is really important.
Wow. Ooh, I'm learning so much. Okay, whose hand was up first, Brenda or Allison? Okay. Okay, Brenda.
So for me, I have little kids. So what I do to help me with the we don't have social media. Kids, they don't have social media. And then when it comes to technology, like watching Netflix or cartoons or whatever, they only get their iPads or watch TV on weekends. So they get it on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday to Thursday, there's no TV, there's no iPad, nothing of that sort. And they do understand it. So even if when the iPad is there, they're not even going to touch it because they know they can't use it. So that's what's been working for me in terms.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So that's a boundary. Monday through Thursday, you can have your no iPad. You can watch Netflix. Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Brenda. Mrs. Sawyer, do you think that, in addition to whatever you're going to share, do you think that the screen time and social media these two things are distracting students in their academics and just social growth? And
there are a couple of books that have been written about Alone in a Crowd is the name of one, and sitting by yourself. And it's, we've all seen this. You go into a restaurant full of people and there'll be a whole group of people at a table together and they're all on their phones, right? Not interacting. This idea that social media begins to take precedence over our ability to even have conversations with each other. And this is where I see it's really important for teachers and parents to communicate effectively on what is happening, what their own rules are in their homes. For instance, we see this a lot with a family that'll come in where their kids have unlimited access to their own devices. There's no parental control on what these kids are seeing. And they become the educators of their peers who are being told at home, no, you may not do this. Or I can use my grandchildren as an example. They're only each allowed a half an hour of screen time a day. And it has to be used in a public place. So you can't take the phone or the iPad into your own room. It's used in a public place, and it's something that is, kind of parent approved content. They feel like it's really important for them to teach their children how to effectively use social media. And so they have a family, let's say like Facebook page or Instagram or something, and they will include the kids into when they want to be a part of posting something or not posting something with the parent, so that they begin to learn how to navigate that. But I think that this idea of parents, we need to be able to communicate with our parents as teachers to set expectations of what we would like to see them modeling at home for their children, but also for them to let us know. We found this a lot, particularly around the fear of, let's say, school shootings, for instance, where some parents want to completely shield their children from that information, and particularly if they have younger children or children who emotionally are fragile or triggered by these things, do not share it at all. And a child comes to school, and the first thing another child who has access to everything says is, gosh, did you guys see this? And look what I heard, and look what I saw. And so I think that it's really important here where we partner with parents to spell out expectations that we have of what would be appropriate for their child, for instance, to share in a classroom or not share in a classroom. But I think that this is a hard one, because this one is happening at home. But I also think teachers need to be aware that because kids are now using this, the more that we can incorporate appropriate use in our classroom. I was at a school that did not allow phones in the classroom. You could be in your locker or in your backpack for use after school, or to call a parent in an emergency, but they weren't allowed in the classroom. That was years ago. And they have kept that up the whole time. As schools experimented with having phones in schools and then not in school, it's interesting to me how many of the pendulum have swung back to no phones in the classroom. We moved to Florida 2 years ago, and they just made that statewide. There are no phones in high schools. And I'm thinking, wow, I can't even imagine as a teacher navigating kids now whose anxiety is, I can't be looking at my phone. So what am I doing in my classroom time to fill that blank, because they have not developed those good social communication skills outside of technology. So I think this is really where parent-teacher communication becomes vital to deal with these. And when you have kids who maybe are in a home situation where there is no parental involvement in helping them to learn this, this is where it becomes really important for us as educators to help gently help them to navigate this when they're not getting any instruction on it at home.
Thank you. I think you hit a very important point, the parent-teacher partnership. There definitely has to be that partnership, right? Okay. Mr. Romeo, Prof, how does social media impact college students? If you can touch on it briefly, and I want us to, from there, we'll jump into extracurricular.
Okay, so for us, we tend to have like a policy in our syllabus, right? So almost every faculty has that, because we know how social media can easily even get into the classroom. For instance, when a live class is going on, yeah. So we generally tell them that you can't use your mobile phone in class, right? Yeah. Even computer or laptop, there is restriction unless you are taking notes. And even that one, we have ways of checking, because sometimes like you are not facing the person, right? So the person may be trying to kind of be on social media, but I generally know all my students, yeah, and I have a list also in front of me. So if I suspect that you're not just taking notes and stuff, I can just call you out of nowhere, right? Whilst I'm teaching, I mean, with a question. And because you are distracted, like you will not be able to answer it. And
Yeah.
the whole class will start laughing, right? Because they will see that no, like this is off, right? So, and students know that, especially at the college level, so they desist from it, because they see that when we have it as a policy in the syllabus, there are ways that we use in checking here, because we are trying to kind of give them that, I mean, let's say skills that they can use even outside school that they can work with, right? So we try to not allow social media to invade. And social media, of course, they can do that when they are done with school time, I mean, at the university level. We try to still, of course, like we don't tell them what they can watch or not, right? But in class, it's a no-no,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So the boundary, we set it just in class, then we leave them, because they are young adults, and of course, at the college level, there are even people who are like coming for their masters and PhD. Yeah, so we just prevent them in class. Then after that, you can do whatever you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, drop in the chat. What's your biggest challenge with social media at home? Or just your everyday life? What's your biggest social challenge with social media? I know. Let's see. I think there's a comment. What's one word to describe how you want the school year? I think we have. Well, yeah, if you can answer that, what's one word to describe how you want your school year to feel for your family? Put that in the chat. And if you're enjoying this conversation, like it, comment, and if you have not subscribed, please subscribe to our channel. Now let's go to extracurricular and social growth. I know that Mrs. Soy, you mentioned a little bit even about your son spending so much time with extracurricular when he was in high school. But let's talk about extracurricular. Anyone can take it. How does it help and how should you manage it? And Brenda, as a parent, you can talk about what you have seen so far. Mrs. Sawyer, you can also talk about what you've seen so far, how it's benefited a child, a student, and how should we find that balance? Because sometimes it can be a lot for parents run into soccer, run into this, run into that.
Well, both of my kids were athletes, and so a lot of our extracurricular was sports, and they played. Some sports were the same and very time consuming. They both swam, and they swam nationally, so it was a lot of away stuff, but both of them also played other sports. And I have to say, as a parent, I don't think we did a good job. We have learned a lot over the years and watching that same son now navigate with his own children, the importance of that. But I think also we had our kids in music lessons, and there was in scouting, and then there were church activities and youth group activities, and suddenly your whole week is just running from thing to thing. This looks very different for a family. Let's say as a single parent, I have a lot of friends who are single parents. That looks very different for them with 2 or 3 kids than it does for a 2-parent household or a 2-adult household with 2 children, right? So I think depending on your own situation, that's going to look very different. But I think it's of huge value for children to learn how to socially interact in groups, find special interests. And for a child, let's say who struggles academically, sometimes it's these extracurricular things that give them life. There's such relief because they can then do the thing they're really good at. Kids who are very musical or very artistic, and they want to draw in the afternoons, or they join an art club, or I don't know, play a sport or whatever. Particularly sports, there's so much social interaction, being on a team, learning to be a teammate, listening to another adult who's an authority, a coach. There are great value in them. So I do not negate or think that they should not be very much a part of children's lives. Many years ago, a book came out called Tiger Moms, and it was about really the focus on Asian culture, where a child will play an instrument and play it really well, will take extra classes. There are no sleepovers. There are no, social things that are just for fun. And so there's that side of extracurricular that can dominate a child's life. And then there's the side of kids doing things just for fun because it's fun to do. I think when we think of groups that come along to help children outside of school, let's say groups like Boys and Girls Clubs, church youth group activities, these are really focused on more teaching children to have a social life outside of school. So I think it's particularly in this day and age of digital world where kids are just on machines all the time. I applaud families who can get their kids in social activities. The flip side of that is that it can tend to dominate a kid's life. For us, the thing that we didn't do well is exactly what Brenda was saying she does, is that priority of saying, okay, we're going to skip this tournament this weekend because we're going to have family time. And too often we let you signed up for this, you need to be responsible to your team, you need to be a good teammate. We let that sometimes take priority over our own family time. We had a son who then went into sports full time. And so as he navigated this through university, even, there were times when his team would be away. He's a baseball player. His team would be away at college tournaments, and it was exam week in school. And as a parent, I'm like thinking, this is nuts. You have these kids away. A college team has the kids away during the week before preparing for exams. And it just made me crazy. But that ended up being his career path. And so now I look back and I think, okay, for me, it didn't fit my thinking of what was the best use of his time. For him, it took a different trajectory. So I just want to say that, especially for a child who maybe struggles academically, extracurricular activities can be wonderful. The other thing is that we have to remember that they can also be very expensive. And I think it is very hard for parents, particularly if you work, let's say, or live in a lower income area that maybe doesn't have access to a lot of those activities, or you're in a highly urbanized area where it maybe doesn't have fields or sport teams, or as a single parent and you have 4 kids who all want to be doing an activity. It's very expensive. So the more that we can kind of encourage ways to find ways that maybe even in our schools that we can offer those activities so that parents aren't struggling so much to try and figure out a way, both time management wise and money wise, where their kids can participate in some of these things.
Wow. Okay. So what is that healthy balance, Eunice, between the academics, the extracurriculars, and how parents can ensure their child is engaged without feeling that overwhelmed?
So I'm going to come from a bit of a physical perspective also, because this relates to younger kids. So we expect that younger children typically have 8 to 10 hours of sleep a day. Right. And so when you're thinking about the brain needing that downtime to recharge, to, regenerate, continue developing, balance is really big there. Are we disrupting the physical needs of our child as we're adding on these extracurriculars? That is then going to filter into, can they show up and be alert and ready to learn and be at school? Can they practice those, great social emotional skills we practice when they are feeling tired, dragged, all that other stuff that comes with being in physical sports, right? Another thing that I think is part of our discussion that we return to a little bit is students who have special needs. Oftentimes we say that when they're in school, when they're with their family, they're learning these skills. And then when they go into, the community, into these extracurriculars, we want them to generalize those skills. We want them to show that they can do them with independence. And so extracurricular activities take on another value there by having students have that other environment where they can demonstrate that they're learning those social skills, where they can demonstrate that they know how to navigate different spaces without that adult supervision that's consistently, supporting them and scaffolding and doing different things for them. So I think we need to think about, what are the physical needs? What are, the social value of having our students enrolled in it? And then also consider, what are the ongoing mental health needs of it? So with younger children, if they're starting to experience anxiety, performance anxiety, specifically around sports and other things, they might start complaining about stomach aches, bodily physical aches, because that's the way that it manifests for them. It manifests for them in their physical health. And are we as parents and guardians making sure we're paying attention to that? So that balance portion really does depend on what the age is, and what is the benefit we think that our children are getting out of it.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Professor, is there anything you want to add to this? I'm just thinking of my college day, what I did in terms of extracurricular.
Yeah, I would say it helps because, sometimes like just focusing on only the academic aspects can create a lot of stress and anxiety, right? Even me as a faculty, like I go to the gym, right? On campus because it helps. Yeah. So basically having it like gives you a better balance, right? So as a student, right, if you have a better balance, it helps. So that it's not just academic, but when you have extracurricular activities that will help your body, being physically and also mentally better, let's say shape you so that you become a better individual. It's not just only your books. Yeah. So I would say that's what I would say to it, like just the balance.
Great. Okay. Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. If you are liking this conversation, please put an emoji or a comment in the chat. Okay, let's talk about advocacy and school partnerships. I know that we've talked about collaboration. We've talked about parent-teacher partnerships. Let's talk about, to Mrs. Sawyer, maybe you can start. What does effective parent advocacy look like from a teacher's perspective? And how can parents, guardians, grandparents build better partnerships with their child's school?
Well, I would say communication is key. We had a kindergarten teacher who used to tell parents, I won't believe everything the child tells me about you, and you won't believe everything the child tells me about you. there is truth to that. I think that as parents, sometimes we live vicariously through our children and we have these expectations that they are the perfect children. We as teachers laughed that after COVID, our relationships with our parents got much better when it was a child that we had been saying is maybe having a hard time focusing in class, and the parent would say, not my child. And then they had to homeschool them for that time period. And they came back saying, oh, I see what you mean. So I think that one of the things is we need to be really honest about our interactions with each other, and understanding that we may see a different child. What a parent sees at home, what a teacher sees at school can be very different. I think the difficulty for parents is time. When I think of a great parent interaction, this is the parent who has made an effort to come to parent conferences, made an effort to come to open house so that I have open communication with him. They'll write notes back and forth to me or leave me a text or a phone call. I always wanted my parents to have easy access to communicating with me. I know not every teacher likes that, but I wanted them to be able to feel like they could call in an evening and say, gosh, my kid is struggling with this assignment so much. What can I do to help? So I think it's about communication. It's very difficult for me when I would have a student whose parents made absolutely, or guardian made absolutely no effort to have any communication. So when this child was struggling, I didn't have a partner to help me with this child. I think that advocacy is about partnership. We are here as a team to help your child become the best person that they can be. And so my job is not, I'm not the babysitter for you to drop your child off with, and then I'll give you a report, once every 6 weeks. This is about, we are a team here helping to raise your child, but the parent knows the child best. The parent is with that child the majority of the time. And so we also need to understand that family life and family dynamics, it certainly are going to impact this child in a way that we're not going to see in the classroom. And it's so important for us to know what some of those issues might be so that we can help partner with the parent in helping those child resolve those issues in a more public or classroom setting. So I see advocacy is really not you're just advocating for your child because you want them to get a better grade, not coming asking me to change your child's grade. This is about advocacy being, are we both advocating for this child to be the very best that we can be? Not punitively, not to come down on each other as a parent and teacher or down on the child, but what are the things we can do to encourage, a child who's not interested in any of the projects in the classroom? Well, can I engage the parents in a way to say, hey, parent, can you come alongside? Do you know if your child has a special interest or skill that I could incorporate and use in the classroom with them? And that parent could come back and say, yeah, this kid is so into crafts, or this kid is so into drawing, or this kid only wants to do it if they could do it on the computer. Gives me some tools to then figure out new ways to engage with that child. So I see advocacy as a partnership with the parent, the child, and then also the student, bringing them into the conversation so they feel like they have a voice and aren't just being talked about, or that these expectations are heaped upon them, especially with a child that maybe has some learning differences or is really struggling in one particular academic area. It's really easy just to kind of for them to feel like everybody's piling on them. And instead, can we do some things to build this kiddo up, give them some tools that they can use in an area where they're struggling? We did a lot in our school with something called Brain Gym, which was, can we do some kinesthetic things to help children who maybe are, have completely shut down in a test. We did a lot of cognitive testing when students came into our school. What's their dominant? Are they audio dominant? Are they, do they shut down hearing when they're stressed? And so they're not even hearing the instructions. And then I'm coming down on them as a teacher because they didn't follow instructions. So the more that we can get to know the whole child, and that's where parents, it's so crucial that we have them alongside as a partnership, and for parents to know what we're seeing in the classroom so we can help this child become really a full whole person where they are feeling the best about themselves as well.
Wow. Yeah, partnership, communication. Brenda, as a parent, what challenges have you faced in advocating for your child, and what strategies have worked best for you?
So in the beginning, it was really knowing the right questions to ask, or if I'm being too overbearing. Maybe for me, I thought I was shooting the teacher too many emails, but some teachers don't mind. They really would want you to reach out to them rather than not saying anything at all. So definitely having an open communication with the teachers. I volunteer in the classroom all the time. The minute they say we have, somebody to volunteer, I'm there. So that, I'm right there. And I feel like when you are there and you are very present, the teachers also pay very good attention to your child. That's what I've realized. So definitely having an open communication, asking questions. No question is silly. You never know. So I asked them, and like for this year, what I did was my kids went to a new school. I sent the teacher an email on the first day that these are my kid's strengths and his weaknesses. If you can keep an eye on it, I sent her that email. So that's what, just having that communication open and then reaching out to the teacher if I feel like something is not going right. Even if something is going right, I'll still send him an email. I'm like, oh, I realized that, he changed in this way. Thank you. What can I do to also help him progress in this area or that? So that's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. So for that parent who cannot, because of work or other hefty commitments, you can do the email thing.
Email
You
all the
can
time. Yeah. And they
email.
might not respond immediately, but they'll definitely respond to you because they are focused on the kids during the school hours. So you just have to have a little patience, and they respond. They always respond.
I want to jump in there too. I think also really reading the stuff that comes home. You may have a teacher that has a special needs child themselves or something and doesn't, or has a second job or something in home life. They're caring for an elderly parent or something, and they don't want communication at home. The teachers will send you something at the beginning of the year saying, here's how to reach me and when to reach me. So, in my school, I loved it when parents could call me, but I had the freedom to take calls at night. Not every teacher's in that position, and a lot of teachers have to work a second job or are caring for family members, or maybe have children of their own that they're helping with homework, whatever. So I just think some of it is respect for whatever that communication is, but really taking the time to read that communication. Because I would find that when I had a problem with a parent or a child, often it was the very parent who'd never bothered to read through any of that information. The difficulty is, let's say you have a child in a public school setting, or you yourself are, let's say, a foster parent. You maybe don't have all the information about that child as well, or you maybe are working with a child who is and this is one of the things I've seen a lot, let's say from a family where they are spending part of the time with one parent in one household and another part of the week with another parent in another household. And so the parent communicating with me hasn't maybe communicated with that other family member. And so these kiddos are, I don't have all the information and they don't have all the information, and they're really stretched thin. So
thank you. Great tips. Great tips. Eunice, anything you want to add about that advocacy for the parents, guardians, your grandparents trying to advocate for their kids as the school year begins?
So I think my perspective is a little bit different. When I think about communication, I also think about how I, as a school official or someone who's a representative of the district, need to make sure that I'm looking for authentic engagement from parents. And because I am a school psychologist, I think a lot of the topics that I deal with, whether in special education, aren't as familiar with parents. So for me, it becomes about the language I'm using, the words that I'm using. Are they understanding what I'm saying? Have I broken the concepts down so that they can understand what their strengths and weaknesses are of their child? Because that enables you to have a much richer conversation where it's now about collaboration versus me imparting information to you, me appearing as the expert, because I'm looking for partnership. I'm not looking to tell you what's best for your child. You know your child best. I'm bringing a perspective, right, from my discipline, but at the same time, I need to be careful around the language that I'm using. How does that interact with your cultural beliefs, how you communicate with people, different, departments, divisions, whatever levels you think there might be between us. And so for me, I think about the words that I'm using. Am I understandable? Can a parent or a guardian actually engage with me in this dialogue? And so that's kind of where I'm coming from when I think about communication. Is it better to be email, or does it really need to be something that's done in person over the phone? What's the mode of communication I'm using that is the best for you to understand what I'm saying so that you can come to the table and provide that information that'll help us make a great decision around which way to go for a child.
That's super important. Also, like in our school, a number of children coming in through refugee programs or whatever. more towards the later years. I'm not sure, Marion, how many families we had in that situation when your kids were there, but the more that happened, the more we began to realize sometimes we had kindergartners who were translating for their parents, you know. And so we had to be really understanding of what's happening at home, and that's where that partnership is so tenuous, because sometimes we don't know those situations. Sometimes a child comes to us and we don't have the full story, or they may be living with a grandparent, but then we find it's the grandparent communicating with us, but they're actually staying at the parent's house or an aunt's house or something. And so that whole family, dynamic becomes really crucial when it comes to understanding what's happening with the child. So that's a super important point. Thank you.
So I think I'm hearing both of you are speaking, and Brenda, all speaking to the parent, the guardian, and you're also speaking to the teacher and the school psychologist, right? The resources. It's important at both ends to find the best forms of communication to be able to help your child to succeed. Okay. Prof, is there anything like advocacy at the university level? Can I call you if my child gets a C?
Yeah, there is, but not much. So the reason why I'm saying there is that especially when they are like in the early years, right? Like maybe like they are now coming to the university, of course. Parents who are more advocate will like to kind of even visit the campus with the child to see the school, like of course beyond what they have read, right? Just to be there, even visit like the dining hall visits. So some will even try to kind of even sit in with their child. I mean, one of the classrooms, right, to see how even like teaching typically is. Yeah, so there are some parents who do that, but normally it's for, let's say, children who are still very young, right? Yeah, because at the university level, children are kind of like young adults, right? So as a parent, you are trying to create a fine balance so that, I mean, let's say your child is able to kind of take certain decisions responsibly, right? So you are trying to teach them that part too. But like just as you all said, it's a collaboration, right? So parents even also behind, let's say, the scenes also like kind of advocate sometimes even through resources that they support the school with, right? So they support the school with certain resources so that, I mean, through those resources, they are kind of collaborating or partnering with the university to be able to kind of bring the best out of their children. Yeah. So there is that collaboration or that advocacy. It's just that the levels and of course the volume of it is not as intense as it used to be, or it is, I mean, below the college level. Yeah. So I would say yes, there's a bit of it. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have one more question. That balancing act, parent role, cultural balance. Brenda, maybe you can start with this. How do career demands, the survival and expectations shape the way you support your child, and how do you find that balance? We might have a parent who has, I know somebody who says she has, is it 4 kids under 10? Finding that balance, if you can speak to that parent for us, and then let's start with you, and if anyone can add anything at this point. We are that parent role balance, that balancing act.
Yes, I would say it's hard. Working full time and taking care of it can be hard, but you just have to give yourself grace and making sure that, for me, I make sure that my kids feel supported and loved. And then so just making the time. When they are in school, you can do whatever, but when they come home, that's when you have to pay attention to them, help them with whatever they need, their homework, taking them to their extra activities and all of that. It can be hard, but you just have to make the time. That's life, I guess. That's just life. So just make the time. If you like, I save my PTO, my vacation time. I don't just save it just to go on vacation. I save it, and sometimes I use some of them just to stay home and take care of the needs of the kids. So I don't have to travel with my PTO. Sometimes I just take the day off, take Fridays or Thursday, Friday, or when they come home. It's just us trying to help them balance their schoolwork and all of that kind of stuff. So it's hard, but I just have to be intentional, be grateful to yourself and the kids, and then help them out. Make sure that they feel supported and loved.
Yeah. And if I may add to it, seeking out support. right? Because sometimes there's a lot of support even within your own community or even family, that we don't take advantage of. And I don't want to, I know Eunice is nodding, so I would leave that so that I maintain my role as your moderator. Who wants to go next, Mrs. Sawyer or yeah?
Allison, I know you unmuted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I
Oh.
forgot to mute before. Please go ahead and comment, and then I'll comment.
So this whole portion about balancing, I think when we think about how we want to support students academically, social, emotionally, if you're not supporting yourself as a parent or a guardian, I don't think you can be there for your child. And we see this, at least I see this in my work, where a parent might be grappling with a divorce or their own mental health issues. And so what shows up in the classroom setting is a child who doesn't have that support or that safety network at home. And so if you don't take care of yourself, you cannot be there for your children. And so I think carving out what your support network looks like, whatever that is, it doesn't have to be family. It doesn't have to be blood family. It can be your community. It can be your church community, whatever community that you're a part of or that you find that support with, invest in that, build that out for yourself, because that will also support you as you support your children. And so I think oftentimes we think of traditional individuals when we think of who our support network is, or our parents, or someone else who's in our close family. But family is the folks who are close to you, who support you, who you've built those relationships with. And so I think investing in those, as well as making sure that we're taking care of ourselves, is really important, especially when it comes to our own mental health.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really echo that. It's a great point. I think, as a teacher, it was easy for me to be, it was easy and hard. I was on the same days, same schedules as they are. I was off when my kids were off. I was at school when they were at school. But at the same time, if there was something going on in their classroom, I couldn't always leave my classroom to go see what they were doing in their classroom. If there was a family pizza day, for instance, I had to be with my class. I couldn't be with my kids. And so often they were by themselves. They didn't have a family member there. Let's say if my husband was traveling or something once in a blue moon, he might be able to be there. But this is where friends and neighbors became super important, where carpool buddies, where we could say, hey, can my kiddos sit with you today because I can't be there, for their activity. We had family that was overseas. We didn't have family, grandparents that were close by. And so, we had kind of para grandparents, friends who kind of filled that role. But that, I think it's hard because kids take it personally when we're not involved as a parent, even though they don't recognize always that we can't always be involved. And so this is where I think, I so love, Eunice, the role of counselors at schools who can help kids navigate some of those emotional feelings when they feel left out because all of their friends' parents came to see a class performance or something and their parent couldn't be there. And so, and again, this is a communication thing, shooting just a quick note off to that teacher saying, I think my child's feeling sad today because I'm not going to be able to be there for the presentation. Could you encourage them a little bit? In that little communication goes a long way. When I would get a note like that from a teacher, I would make sure that I could, grab another parent real quick and say, hey, can you stop by their desk and see their project too? So, allowing them to be a part of that process was really important.
Yeah, that is so. That is so important. And our hats off to all teachers, school administrators, bus drivers. Thank you so much for all you do for our kids. I know that I will talk about them when we are closing, but you make a very good point, Mrs. Sawyer, about shooting the teacher a short email. So a couple of years ago, my daughter had just started. She had just started. It was in September. She had just started elementary school, first grade. And my father was turning 80, so I had to travel overseas for that. And when I came back, the teacher said every day she would come. The teachers, I don't know what you call it, you have these stickers, smiley, happy, and this girl will always put sad. So the third day she said, why are you putting sad, a sad face on the board? And she said, my mom has traveled. Then she realized that, oh, this child was feeling sad that the mother was away. So how she managed it was different, right? And so communication is so key. Thank you for bringing that up. Do you have anything to add about that balance, especially for those whose kids are now leaving for college? You want to hold on to that child, but they are gone. Prof. Eunice, you can add to that.
I would say that, of course, as a parent, you have to still be active in the life of your kids. It's very important. Like, so me, for instance, I was even beyond me being passionate about teaching. One of the reasons why I chose academic route is that I want to be the life of my kids. Even though at that time I didn't even have like a family yet, like at least my own family yet. Even though, yeah. So it's important, right? But as a parent, you have to create a balance, right? So that your child can still be able to, let's say, survive on their own when they are not within your reach or your influence. Yeah. Because at the college level, we are kind of preparing them for them to kind of like transition and even into the work environment and to be able to do other things, kind of to be able to become an individual or let's say a family if they want to, right? So there's a fine balance. So a parent has to be like the right mentor, especially for someone who is coming to college, so that when the person is in college, the person already knows that this will be approved by my parent or this is acceptable by my parents, right? Person doesn't even need the mom or the dad to call, hey, you can't do this. They know, right? Because you have done all the right training and let's say guidance and of course kind of like coaching and everything throughout their formative years up to that time that they have gained admission. Yeah. So I would say that we have to kind of be a good mentor right from the word go, so that when they are in college, that you can't be in their space too much. They still have you as the right model to always kind of model their life after and even do things so that still they will be able to do the right thing, take the right decision because they have already been given the solid education from you, the parent, as well. Yeah. So that's what I'll add to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I want us to, I know this is something that is just coming to me. I want us to speak to the college, at that college level, and we all have been to college or have some associations with college. Peer to peer, that bond, that friendship, that support. Can you speak to that? Because there might be a college person that is listening, just starting college. How do I build relationships that can support me?
Yeah.
Anyone can go.
So I can start with that and after that. So I hope we have all, and also including our audience listening, we have heard of peer pressure, right? So at the college level, it's also there, right? And it's really live, right? So like just as scripture, just as iron sharpened iron, a man affect the countenance of the other. So your peers can really shape who you are or who you become, right? So in that sense, sometimes even you have to be selective even as a student, right? And even also even think consciously about those that you're associating with. Yeah. So as you are in classroom, of course. Me, for instance, when I was a student, everyone in the class was my friend, right? But beyond everyone being my friend, I also had like close friends among them, right? Because like we share ideas, so you don't want like a bad influence, right? Because it is very easy for you to be influenced negatively and for you to go with that, especially at the college level, because at that age, people who can influence are really strong in influence. Like they are good at what they do, right? So you have to really be cautious about that. And because of how peer pressure and of course group thing too, right? So that like you are not forced, especially even as a student, you are not forced to kind of do things because like this is how people perceive it to be, even though you know it's wrong. Like if let's say your entire peers will support, let's say, a wrong thing, you don't do it because you know that all the group will approve of that, right? And so that like in taking decision, you are still an individual, you evaluate things and you don't just fly with what your peers see as acceptable, right? Ask yourself whether what you are doing is really acceptable, not just because of your peers, because peers are really influential at that stage and they tend to kind of shape students as to what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, because at that age, there's a lot of, when they are off, they are off. A
Yeah.
lot of liberty, they are forming new friends and all that. So, okay, who else wants to speak to that? Who else wants to speak to that? You can.
So I'm a
Yes.
little different. So my parents had, I feel, less work to do. I'm naturally an introvert. But I will say that in college, there are so many different student interest groups that you would be able to find individuals who share some of your values, who share some of your culture, who share some of the goals that you set for yourself in your college experience or your graduate school experience. And so you'll be able to find, what I always say is, you'll be able to find your tribe. You'll be able to find those individuals who, they challenge you, but at the same time, there's that fundamental idea around, what is my role in society? What are my values? And how do I live my life according to that? And I think the goal is to find that tribe. It might not come as a closed package of individuals who are part of, like, the African Student Union or the Black Student Union or whichever union you're a part of, but you'll be able to find those individuals who can build you up and you build them up. And I think it has to be reciprocal. When we're thinking about building friendships at this age, it has to be a reciprocal relationship. I think that you can't just put yourself out for them every time, being what you see as the ideal friend, and that's not happening on their end. So considering what that looks like, it's as simple. I think sometimes we make it too complicated. What does it mean to be a good human being? Based on, the mores that your parents have instilled in you, but also, what does it mean to be a good friend? And what does it mean to be a good citizen? And do you see yourself building a relationship, having that reciprocal relationship with that person as a friend, while you're in school?
I think it's so critical for young adults, particularly. We send them off to college, and let's say they have a college roommate. You assume that's going to be your friend. In each of my children's situations, that was not the case. For my son, who was under the kind of an authority of a coach as well, they kind of monitored that a little bit more. And when a kid was struggling, they saw it. But kids going off to school who don't have that peer group and are trying to find that, I had an experience kind of late in my career. I have 3 very unrelated degrees from each other, but did not come to education through the educational framework. So I went to do my master's of arts in teaching to get the educational background for these degrees I had. And I was going back to school, as a 40-year-old, thinking, oh, this is going to be, I'm not looking forward to this experience with the students. And just what you were talking about, it was so interesting how almost immediately I could figure out who the people were who had similar goals for being there. And some of them have become lifelong friends for me, much younger than I was, some not much younger than I was, but it was that consistency of finding people who had similar goals to myself was really, really helpful. And I was charmed to find out that there were these young people who were so happy to engage with an older person, um, and that we could work together, let's say in a group setting or something like that, study together for different courses. But it was that commonality of having those common goals. And I think, as opposed to a younger child who maybe is drawn to somebody because they live in the same neighborhood or they're in the same class, for a young adult, it's, what are these lifelong goals? What are you looking at down the road? And they can have a huge influence. I look at my own children who are now in their 30s, and some of their closest friends are still the people who were their collegiate friends, who have formed a lot of who they are as individuals have been because of those relationships. And I'm so grateful for them as a parent.
Wow. That has been a wonderful conversation. I mean, very empowering. I have learned a lot just listening to each one of you. So we are just about to land our plane. I want you to give 1 or 2 best tips. You leave 1 powerful, 2 powerful tips for this school year. When you think about it, take a minute. When you think about it, what would it be? Think about the school teacher. Think about the resources, the counselor. Think about the parent, the guardians. Think about those who don't even teach, who are not teachers, but they are part of that school community, right? Think about the bus driver. I'm giving you a minute to think as I'm talking, because there's one video that we put up on, it says $25 to Harvard. How? And that was the person that I interviewed. She couldn't afford to go to college. 5th one out of 9 kids, and filled the college application, told the school counselor, I'm sorry, Mrs. Garces, I cannot do this. And the woman goes into a bag and writes a check of $25. and this was a school counselor, not a millionaire, who saw her, who saw the potential. And you can listen to that video. It's on our channel. Listen to it. It's amazing. Teachers, counselors, psychologists, bus drivers, you are doing a lot. And today we want to say thank you. We salute you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wishing you a wonderful 2025-2026 school year. Now to my panelists, give us your 1-2 best tips for the school year to be a success. You might be speaking to the parent, you might be speaking to a teacher, you might be speaking to another resource person, a college professor, a child, a college student. So who wants to go first?
I can start. I would say assume the best. Assume the best about the educator, about the child, about the parent. Looking at each individual as a person that has a lot to offer, and seeing the opportunity to partner. So I would say partnership and assuming the best.
Partnership and assuming the best. Thank you, Mrs. Sawyer.
So I'll say that it's self-care and communication.
Good
So
ones.
our school folks, to our parents, our guardians, take care of yourselves so that you can take care of your kids.
Yeah.
Really wise.
Self-care and communication. If you're not well, you can't take care of anyone. So self-care, thank you. So if I had one, assume the best. Actually, Mrs. Sawyer, I wanted you to expand a little bit on assume the best. Can you unpack it slightly?
I think that sometimes we look at teachers and or parents and or students kind of as the enemy in a way. We see that they're against us. I think students particularly feel that, my teacher is against me or my parents are against me. I think as a parent, we often look at a teacher saying, you don't understand my child, or we look at a child saying, you're not getting this. If we reframe our thinking a little bit to say that's not the case in any of these situations, what is it that we have in common as a good goal? Let's assume we are all on the same page and work together for this. So if we assume the best in that person, you are here for their betterment, that as that student, that your teacher really wants to help you, as that parent, that your teacher is a partner, as a teacher, that your parent is that partner, and that the child has something valuable and wonderful in them to bring out. No child, it may not be the interest in your subject. I mean, I really found this in middle school because my subjects were very specific. And I was, history and computer science. If I've got kids who were, math or, foreign languages or something, they weren't as interested in my classes. That's okay. There's still a lot of value in what they bring to my classroom. So I think just looking for the best in each other helps us to communicate better and hopefully build a better team to bring the best out of our students.
Thank you. Assume the best, partnership, self-care, communication. So, Eunice, I'm thinking that we've said a lot about communication. So, communication between guardians, schools, psychologists, finding the best forms. Right. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Do you want to go, Prof, and then we'll end with Brenda?
Okay. And so I will say that to the parents, right, take keen interest in what your children are studying in school, especially for the semester. You can even ask them what are some of the courses they are taking, right? And even what is making them or what motivated them to do that, right? It's good because then it will get you to kind of interact with your child so that you know what is going on, whether they are looking forward to the semester or not, right? Then to the students themselves, right? I mean, they should know that the faculty or the professors are there for them, so they should make use of the office hours, right? Go see your professors when you have any issue, whether it's academic or even sometimes even like career or even advice, right? They are there because of you. So that's what I would say. Parent taking interest in what your children are studying, then of course, to the children or the student to make use of the office hours. Yeah.
Okay, great. Taking interest, parents, don't just let them go off. And then take advantage of the office hours. The professors are there to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
okay. Great. Brenda.
Yes, I agree. I would say definitely be present and be involved in your children's education. also make sure that you celebrate their efforts as much as their
Okay.
achievements, which is very important. That's what I'll say.
Celebrate, be present and involved, celebrate their effort.
As
Any
much as
burning,
possible.
thank you. Celebrate, thank you. So I have 8, assume the best. We are in this together, right? It's a partnership, self-care, communication, taking interest, take advantage or make use of the office hours, be present and involved, celebrate their effort. Any last word? Final word, and the plane will taxi. We've been taxiing, but we want to touch down and we are done.
I learned a lot from you all. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so let me land the plane. Eunice, you are smile. When you smile, that means you're going to say something.
No, it doesn't. It could just be me smiling.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. So.
Thank you so much to our panelists. You can put in an emoji. You can say thank you right in the chat. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, practical strategies, the tips, and the learning among ourselves. Even the yes, we have not all met. I know each one of you, but just the camaraderie, how do you say that word? That's being able to work together and to have that conversation, learn from each other. I've learned a lot. So thank you, and thank you to our audience. Thank you for those of you here live now and those who will be watching the replay. Thank you for watching. Community, if you found value, please hit that like button, share with another parent, another teacher, a college student, a friend, and make sure you are subscribed so that you don't miss out on anything. I see the thank yous coming out. Self-care, communication are indeed very important. Thank you all. Thank you. We hope you leave today with tools, encouragement, and confidence to make this school year a successful and balanced one for both you, for your child, that you keep your sanity. Remember, it's your peace, about your peace, it's about your sanity. It's about self-care. It's about also strengthening the community. When we all do well, the child does well, teacher does well, psychologist does well, the community, everyone does well, and it has ripple effect. Thank you so much for joining, and I see your comments. Somebody said, thank you, very insightful. Thank you, panelists, very informative. Really, really grateful to you. So I'll mention your names and we'll say our goodbye. So Professor Abraham, I call him Romeo. Thank you for the perspective that you brought from that college perspective. Thank you so much. For Mrs. Sawyer, I call her Mrs. Sawyer, but she said call her Alison. I've known her for years. She's an amazing teacher. She looks at that whole child. Thank you for the years of experience and your service to all of us. Thank you so much for coming today. Eunice, Eunice. I've also known Eunice for a while. If there was anything called plagiarism, Eunice has helped me write so many things. So I don't know, Prof, how would you say that? But I'll write and Eunice would correct them and really shape it nicely for me. I guess there's no machine for that. So Eunice, thank you for your friendship, your intelligence, and agreeing very last minute. And of course, Brenda. For those of you who don't know, Brenda is an influencer. Apart from being a parent, being a teacher, being she has a YouTube channel. She's really active on TikTok. Thank you, Brenda, for the insight, the experiences that you've also brought to the table. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you again. Remember, we'll be having a lot of sessions on AI. We heard a lot. The professors are also checking what we are doing, whether we're using a lot of AI. We'll be doing a lot of AI in the month of September. So subscribe, hit the notification button, and we will share with you. I'll tell you, this is the very longest we've gone on any session. So kudos to every one of you, and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.